Hi, I'm Lawrence.
I'm Nick.
Welcome to the Nick and Lawrence Show, and we're back for another adventure.
Yep, welcome back, and we are excited to dive into our next
Yep.
episode right after the break. So,
Yep.
see you soon. Welcome back, Lawrence.
Hey, welcome back.
I mean, Ruby Drew.
Lawrence?
Okay, try that again.
Lawrence? It's not the best. I'm pretty good with Astro and stuff.
Yeah, Astro's a little easier.
Astro's a little easier.
Well, I can't really do I can't. I'm not even gonna try impression because that was pretty good. But what did you say for all those non-Scooby speaking people?
For people that don't know how to use their R's, I said I love you, George, which was Astro's key thing to George.
Okay. Nice.
Actually, the actor, and as we're talking about that, we're talking about our
Yes.
favorite Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah.
And I will say that we'll start off with the Jetsons and Scooby-Doo. I found out something that the actor who did Scooby-Doo was also the same voice actor who did Astro, and his name was Don Mesnick.
Okay.
And
Nice.
but Astro came first, and then Scooby-Doo, of course, came a few years later. And the R's, I think we hear a lot more R's from Astro than we do Scooby-Doo. But,
yeah.
But I brought some things because Nick and I were like, we've grown up with a lot of the same stuff through the 80s. Some of it goes back to either during our parents' generation or a little bit before, when I thought about thinking, okay, we're talking about cartoons, and everything was being rerun in the 80s anyway. And so, but
right.
I brought
so why don't you just go through these quickly?
Yeah, we'll go through this quickly.
You got a lot.
We got a lot. So I've got two box sets that have the classics that we grew up with: Superman, Woody Woodpecker, Betty Boop, Casper, The Three Stooges, Felix the Cat. These are a couple of the cartoons that later when we were kids were just being rerun. Mm-hmm. Definitely brought Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo is kind of a fun. This was first and second season.
Yeah.
And this is this other one. It says third season, but it's really the Scooby-Doo show that came on later in the late 70s and early 80s, but it was compressed as a third season to the original Scooby-Doo.
Got it. Okay.
Definitely brought the Jetsons and the Flintstones, and we'll kind of dive into it after I show you some of the stuff. So here's Flintstones season 6, and here it is. First and sixth, so kind of first and last. I've got the whole complete season. Here's the Jetsons' first season.
Okay.
I got Back to the Future as an animated series.
Which that was obviously a newer one.
That was in the 90s.
Yeah.
And then I got Garfield and Friends.
Okay.
And then a very old VHS relic, The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, that was definitely in the 80s, and this was a volume 4 thing.
Okay.
So that's
nice.
Kind of a generic, and hopefully you got all of that, and you can go back and relook at it all. But this was pretty much some of the stuff that I grew up with in my childhood. Oh, I missed one that I was going to say, which was Yogi Bear and. Yogi Bear, and it's a complete series, and then one that I liked, which was a crossover, which was the Jetsons and the Flintstones, which was from the late 80s, but this one had to be added into a lot of the cartoons.
Yeah, the crossovers were always fun.
Crossovers were always fun. So there's a little bit, on the ones that I was showing you, the ones with Woody Woodpecker and stuff, you definitely, we had, I guess, the labels clearly says I have about 260 of the and these are on a couple of discs and stuff, but 260 of those cartoons. So that kind of made up for all the single Hanna-Barbera cartoons that go back to the 1950s. And like I said, there were shows that from Hanna-Barbera that came on when our parents were, or even grandparents came on, because TV was going back to at least the late 30s to the early 40s, but Hanna-Barbera didn't come into play with even their cartoons until the mid 50s, and so I just, my mom wasn't, well, I got family that, wasn't born until the late 50s or early 60s, so it took about a good decade before they caught on to that stuff when they watched some of those cartoons and stuff. And the Flintstones, we got to make sure that people know of, was, we think of it as a children's cartoon today. In the 60s, it was really like we were talking about Superman. Some of the shows that were made in the 50s and 60s were more for adults than they were for kids. So the Flintstones, which had a long series like The Simpsons did, was really meant for adults. There was a lot of contents with drinking and smoking and all of that, and so
that's interesting.
Yeah. But then of course later on they changed it, took out some of that stuff and re-edited. Well, it's like the Jetsons. I was going to mention Jetsons, and Jetsons season 1. They only had one season for that, and it was all made for adults. And then they came back in the 80s when we were kids, revised the show, did an extra 2 seasons more from the original, but they cut out the smoking, the drinking. They made it more educational, a lot of science, and it focused not on George or Mr. Spacely, but it focused around Judy and Elroy and of course Astro. And then of course they made a feature-length movie, and of course things like the Jetsons and the Flintstone movie came along, but then of course I really like Garfield and Friends. I liked Back to the Future and the Many Adventures of the Winnie the Pooh, which were all 80s, early 90s stuff, and then there was Inspector Gadget and the Smurfs, and
so they did a lot of the...
They did a lot, and then of course as the 80s came on, we had other cartoons like Garfield and Heathcliff, and I grew up with a lot of cartoons, and then there were some other cartoons that came on in the 90s. There was Captain Planet, and I was mentioning this on Facebook because Netflix just came out with a new version of Carmen Sandiego. But at the same time, in the 90s, after they had done a very successful PBS game show that was live action, they turned it into a cartoon called Where on Earth is Carmen Sandiego, which I think is about the same as what Netflix is doing with their own original series.
I'll have to check that out. Yeah. Well, Carmen Sandiego was popular.
And we talked about it in our video game thing
they had
video games, and Matt and Nick and I talked about it in our video games episodes. So. But it's nice to know that Carmen Sandiego is coming back. I think that this one, I won't get too much of a because it just came out in the last day or two, but it looks like it's given her history before she joins, before she becomes a villain and before she joins Acme Crime Net. So I won't give too much away, but it looks as if it's a pre-story, and you'll. But I haven't even gotten through all the episodes myself, so I can't ruin it too much because I think I got up to like 5 or 6. I almost binge watched that.
Nice.
But
you want to just take it slow.
And I'll have to go back and.
Well, and that's interesting that you brought that up, because with Netflix and all the streaming stuff these days, kids, they don't have. I don't know if they have Saturday morning cartoons anymore. Like, if there's any kids out there, do you watch cartoons Saturday morning, or do you just watch everything on Netflix all the time? But that's kind of interesting, because I remember most of the cartoons only came on Saturday morning.
Well, that's how it was. Now the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, like this VHS tape, was definitely a Saturday morning. I think, and this one, The King of the Beasties, is all about Tigger, and was one of my favorites. So
yeah, I think out of all of these that you brought, at least Scooby-Doo is probably my favorite. I definitely watched Garfield. I probably did watch the Jetsons just because it was a cartoon on, but I probably watched Scooby-Doo the most, and then it just really depends on what was on, because there were so many different cartoons to choose from. Like when we were growing up, like Transformers, He-Man,
was good.
And Smurfs, like you said, and
then there was Inspector Gadget.
And then the Disney Channel cartoons. You know, in the early '90s, like Darkwing Duck and
DuckTales.
DuckTales. Yeah.
Tailspin.
There's a new Darkwing Duck, I think, on Netflix.
Yeah. Well, they've redone the. They redid the DuckTales series and made a new.
Oh, DuckTales, yeah.
I think DuckTales is what's new. They're rebooting that, but
yeah, that's fun. That was always one of my favorites.
Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers.
Yeah, those were all Disney Channel ones, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think they were made by Disney. I think somehow if you didn't have.
Oh, they were on ABC.
I think they were on ABC. I think they were. You know, we've talked much about that. I think they did. I think they were and they weren't necessarily. I think there was a block at one point in time through ABC. If you didn't get Disney Channel or have the money, your family didn't have the money for the cable channel, I think you were able to see one or two of those shows in syndication on whatever the station was. You know, you might have a local station, like for us, we'd have a local station plus ABC, and you know, they'd find and what we used to do, even on weekdays, was it was the Disney afternoon weekdays after school kind of a thing, and they would, back in the day, you were lucky enough if you got cartoons, you know, between the hours of 3 and 5 before your parents watched the news.
Yeah.
And so you got that before dinner, and then of course you waited until Saturday, and then could watch the cartoons from 8 in the morning or earlier, from early on until noon.
Like 6 in the morning.
6 in the morning.
I know. The one day you could sleep in besides Sunday, you got up like super early, you know, from having to go to school every day like 7 in the morning. But that's a good point, because it kind of jogged my memory. Most of those cartoons, and kind of getting a little flashbacks here, after school, like you get home at 2:45 or 3 o'clock, and that's where most of the shows were on, and they were on just regular broadcast channels. And so I think ABC, you would watch Darkwing Duck and Tailspin and Chip and Dale, and then, like you said, the Captain Planet. And then also, this wasn't a cartoon, but also in that lineup was Power Rangers. But those, and then usually the ones on Saturday morning were, there were some of those, but they were mostly like the Looney Tunes, Animaniacs.
Well, I think that was the thing that was interesting, is that there was a large thing of the Bugs Bunny. I mean, I think the Bugs Bunny stuff started in the late 60s and 70s, and kind of just became, and then they became just regular. Like I said, when I showed those 260 cartoons, you had like some of those, things that came out before a movie, and then as we became kids and we were around, it was, they turned it into like an hour block of these, 6 to 7 minute, maybe 11-minute shorts, and turned it into a half-hour thing. So you'd get all the old classics before, going back to the 1940s, and then just, being at a point where, you get a 30-minute half hour. So Bugs Bunny seemed to have, like, you could literally watch a half hour of Bugs Bunny cartoons and realize that these were a lot older than they were. I mean, until Space Jam came out as a movie, and
brought them back. Yeah, made them a little more relevant.
But when we were kids, it was just
the older cartoons.
And as time went on, I think they have kind of updated those cartoons and stuff, but they're not as good as, just seeing reruns that came from movie theaters and they're just put onto TV much later.
Yeah. Well, there was Tom and Jerry. Which were kind of their own little, cartoon.
I think that was special. Kind of like and what I learned from that was a precursor to Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah.
I mean, they were MGM, but the two people, William Hanna and Joseph Barbera, were the two people that I think they worked on some of the Tom and Jerry cartoons through MGM, and when they didn't make any more cartoons there, that's when they transitioned to television and started creating Yogi Bear and Flintstones, and the rest was history.
Yeah.
And Popeye, I mean, I kind of like Popeye, and Popeye is a fun one, but it was interesting because the live action movie that features Robin Williams, not the best, not the best, and that's the thing that's interesting, is that so many people have taken these classic cartoons and then they've turned them into live action, and they're not the same. I think the only movie that I liked live action was the 1994 Flintstone movie with John Goodman and Rosie O'Donnell and Elizabeth, and they got a really great all-star cast, and all of them played. I mean, John Goodman. When we think of the character he plays on Roseanne, I'm like, he's Dan Connor, but he's also Fred Flintstone, and
he was good.
He was really good for playing. But the guy who directed that went in, and there's things that other TV shows, Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley, got turned into cartoon series.
Yeah, no, there's just so many cartoons, and we don't even know the cartoons that are on today. I mean, some of the ones that have stood the test of time, like SpongeBob, are still on, and you've probably watched that, and SpongeBob's been on for a while.
And there's Phineas and Ferb from the Disney Channel.
Yeah, that's a good one also. That's been on a while.
It's been on a while.
But yeah, those are some of the newer classics, I'd say, because I like both of those, and so do you.
Yeah.
But yeah, we could honestly go on and on and on for a while talking about cartoons. We might have to have another episode, and we'll hone in a little bit on some more specifics about the cartoons, because we've covered some in the past a little bit. Like when we first started, a couple of our first episodes, we talked about Nickelodeon. If you remember the shirt from our first episode. So all these Nickelodeon cartoons were also something that we grew up on. And there's a lot of cool resources. At least one of the nice things about everything streaming now is you can find everything on YouTube, or you can subscribe just to some services that'll give you like Nickelodeon or Disney content. But yeah, we're out of time for now, so I'll leave you with this real quick. There's a new service, and it's a streaming service that offers a lot of the Hanna-Barbera cartoons or type cartoons, and specifically Flintstones, Jetsons, and Scooby-Oo, and it's called Boomerang. And so I highly recommend Boomerang. I just subscribed to it.
We grew up with it when it was on TV, and now it's a streaming
service.
It's a streaming service.
They have all the Scooby-Doo TV episodes on it, and the old ones and the new ones.
Bunny and Jetsons and.
Yep, and they have I just watched it the other night. They have the new Scooby-Doo and Batman that you showed in our that episode.
Yep.
So I want the one that you brought with the DVD. I just watched that on Boomerang. It was pretty fun. So check that out. But until next time, I'm Nick.
I'm Lawrence.
And this is Nick and Lawrence Show.
Okay, see you next time.
See you later.